Good morning, everybody. Part 11 of Every Man's Battle study. We're going to dive right into it. This part is from Steve. It says fractional addiction. Fractional addiction. Before we answer that question, what was the question? The question from the last video. If we aren't addicts, then what are we? Before we answer that question, let's think again about those three levels of addiction as described above from our Christian perspective. Let's insert another level at the bottom of the addiction scale. If we categorized being totally pure and holy as the 0 level, most Christian men that we know would fall somewhere between level 0 and level 1. Okay, remember, level 1 was contains behaviors that are regarded as normal or acceptable or tolerable. Remember what those are. Masturbation, homosexuality, and prostitution. People see that as normal, acceptable, and tolerable. So that means most Christians would fall somewhere between level 0 and level 1. If you're one of the many men in this area, it probably isn't at all helpful to label you as an addict or imply that victory will take years of therapy. Instead, victory can be measured in weeks, as we'll describe later. Your addictive behaviors are not rooted in some deep, dark, shadowy mental maze as they are in levels 1, 2, and 3. Rather, they're based on pleasure highs. Men receive a chemical high from sexually charged images. A hormone called epinephrine is secreted into the bloodstream, which locks into the memory whatever stimulus is present at the time of the emotional excitement. I've counseled men who became emotionally and sexually stimulated just from entertaining thoughts of sexual activity. A guy dead set on purchasing Hustler at his local 7-Eleven is sexually stimulated long before he even steps into the convenience store. His stimulation began in his thought process, which triggered his nervous system, which secreted epinephrine into the bloodstream. Where does it go? Typically, I say it goes from the eyes to the mind to the body. All of that happens in about a half a second. It's very quick the way this works. Very quick the way that epinephrine is released into the bloodstream and the way that the body responds to it. The body reacts very quickly to a stimuli that takes place. Now, I'm going to keep going here so we can get through a little bit further. From my counseling experience, I believe it's often true that those men living at level 1 or worse have deep psychological problems that will take years to work through. But relatively few men live there. Our contention is that the vast majority of men stuck in sexual sin are living between level 0 and level 1. We call this a fractional addiction, since it represents living at a level that's a fractional between 0 and 1. It's a fraction between 0 and 1. When we're fractionally addicted, we surely experience addictive drawings, but we aren't compelled to act to salve some pain. We aren't compelled to act to salve some pain. We're compelled by the chemical high that the sexual gratification and the sexual gratification that it brings. Another way of looking at the scope of the problem is to picture a bell curve. According to our experiences, we figure around 10% of men have no sexual temptation problem with their eyes and their minds. At the other end of the curve, we figure there's another 10% of men who are sexual addicts and have a serious problem with lust. They've been so beaten and scarred by emotional events that they simply can't overcome that sin in their lives. They need more counseling and transforming washing by the word. The rest of us comprise the middle 80%, living in various shades of gray when it comes to sexual sin. So there is a chemical thing that happens. What happens? Again, it's very quick. This guy that's going to buy the pornographic magazine in the convenience store, it happens to him before he ever enters the store. He was already being chemically driven. That epinephrine was already starting to be released because he knew what he was going to do. It happens when you see men, when you look at a female, and I'll go back to the example they use here, a female jogger jogging down the road, a female walking her dog these days, they're wearing the tights, the everything else, I counted it one day, just in a neighborhood. I intentionally counted 4 different women just when I was leaving a neighborhood, just leaving a house. I pulled up to pick up something at a house, and I was leaving that house, and as I was leaving that house, on the way out of the neighborhood, 4 different women, either walking a dog, walking themselves, whatever it was, were out there scantily clad, I would say, dressed in tights even, whatever it was. And I counted that just to take notice of how many times that we don't see it, what we don't notice. But what we don't notice is that our brain does notice. Eyes notice, the mind notices, immediately releases the chemical to the body, and we feel that in those areas. And so it happens that quickly. And so, but that doesn't make you a sex addict. What it does do, though, is it puts you in that fractional space between 0 and 1. And what does that require? It requires you to put on the armor of God. It requires you to get into the Word. It requires you to know one scripture sometimes, just one. Just memorize one scripture that you can use to battle against that stuff. And because here's the thing. Look at Jesus. Jesus was tempted. Tempted. You are tempted. You think there's a difference? There's no difference. You are tempted. Jesus was tempted. What did Jesus say? It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. Simple as that. And the devil had to stop one simple scripture. You can put the devil in his place. Put your mind at ease. Put your mind at ease, man. Put your mind at ease. You can overcome this. And it is not hard, but you have to do it. Doing it is what makes a difference. Now, the next part says going for forbidden fruit. As I described earlier, I lived in this area of fractional addiction. During my first decade of marriage, as well as earlier in my adolescence and college years, my interest in the female body had been formed when I was 4 and 5 years old and visiting my grandfather's machine shop in Ranger, Texas. I loved walking into that old shop filled with lathes and presses where Grandpa made tools to retrieve broken oil well pipes. His office walls were adorned with nude pinups, and I stared at these voluptuous naked women in awe. As I grew older, I saw women more as objects than people who had feelings. Pornography became for me an enticement to forbidden love. Many young women I dated in high school and college were sexually pure and stayed sexually pure while we dated, but I was always manipulating and conniving, going for what was forbidden. I later tasted the forbidden fruit when I entered the promiscuous period of my life. When I did have premarital sex, it gave me a sense of control and ownership, as if these young women belonged to me. They were objects of my gratification, just like those pictures on the wall of my grandfather's shop. Now, before I go further, let me just take just a minute. Let me just say this. For you guys who are not married, you're dating, you've got a girlfriend, whatever, you have no rights to her. Let me just lay that out for you right now. You have no right to that body. You have no right to her. Stop. If you're doing stuff already, stop it. She's not yours. She belongs to God, and she belongs to her Father. She does not belong to you. Keep that in mind going forward. I don't mean to reprimand in this case so much as to let you know it. And you can break free. Be encouraged, brothers. Be encouraged. There is strength in this, and it's not hard, but you must do it. I want you to let me know in the comments also, how are these videos doing for you? I can see that there's, they're not getting a massive following. That's understandable. But let's say this. Those of you that are watching these videos, what are they doing for you? Let me know in the comments, okay? I'm going to come out. I'm not going to stop either way. We're going to do part 12 coming up pretty soon, but talk to me, all right? I'm here for you guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.